Hello and welcome to the 16th edition of Half Hour, a podcast starring me, John Paulo Giudice, as your host. In today's episode, I'll discuss social media and the mind with Harshita Ahuja. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, anytime. So I'll just start off by asking you, why, what is your life about right now? Like, what have you been up to? Like, school, things like that.
Yeah, so I just started my final year of my bachelor's degree in psychology. I'm currently working on my thesis, and it's mostly school these days. Also, in the past few months, I really got interested in user experience design, and after I finish my degree, I would like to explore more of that.
That's pretty cool. What is user experience design?
So basically, it's a field that is at the center of psychology, mainly cognitive psychology and technology. It's about designing products, mostly digital products like apps and whatever online platforms we have, in a way that is friendly to the user. It like keeping in mind how our attention, perception, things like that work. So the experience is smooth, enjoyable. It's just better for the user.
I know that Jeff Bezos was talking about that with Amazon, about how they were really trying to tailor the site to be good. I saw a little interview on Instagram Reels, and he was like, "Oh, we're trying to tailor the site so that it's more user friendly and useful." So I feel like that has a lot of modern applications.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty cool.
I think the first company was Apple, probably, to start with that. It's just how the sounds work and the touch, like the way you get notifications. It's just a very good experience when you're holding an iPhone in your hand. So I think they're very ahead on that. But yeah, companies are catching up, and it's an emerging field.
Like the little clicks, like when you type things.
Yeah, it all adds to the experience.
I always liked, when I was younger, I had like an Android phone. And I always liked how the phone would vibrate a little bit when you texted on it.
Yeah.
I hate the clicking noises though on the iPhone. But don't look at me like I'm the outlier. Like I just can't like the sound, like it's like that. I just can't deal with it.
The idea of having the sound and the notification, it's about giving the user feedback. Like when you turn, for example, you're using an iron, for example, you turn the thing on and you don't know if it's on or not. So there can be like a little light on it that tells you it's on, it's hot. So it's like providing you with feedback. So it's not frustrating for the user trying to figure out.
And it's like there's more information available.
Yeah.
So this can be applied also on social media. Like I know that, okay, so Elon just bought Twitter, so that's pretty huge. But also I know Instagram and Facebook try very hard to be very user friendly and kind of even want you to use it. Like they want you to stay on the platform longer. Like you see that on Instagram Reels. You don't really want to leave. You just want to keep scrolling.
Yeah. I think it really affects the reward-seeking pathway of our brain, and in a way that it's not ethical at this point. That it makes you overuse your dopamine pathways. So if you want some background information on that, I will give you an analogy. So for example, when you're training a dog. And for example, I'm training my dog to sit. So every time I command the dog to sit, I don't give the dog a treat. Instead of giving the dog the treat every time the task is completed, I give the treat randomly, which keeps the dog thinking when the treat comes. Another great example is when you're on a slot machine, you sit down, you pull the lever, and sometimes you might get a jackpot, sometimes you might not get anything. So that keeps you going. Now, we can apply this analogy on scrolling based platforms where good information, something funny, any social information is like the reward. It's like the jackpot. It's like the treat. And you keep scrolling. Like you might not always get good content, but you keep going because it keeps you guessing. So like that is how it attaches to your reward seeking pathway.
So it's almost like a digital slot machine in terms of like the information flow that's hitting you.
Yes.
You know, like some of it's good, some of it's bad. Like some of it I see, I'm like, oh, I got to send this to my buddy. Some of it I'm like, okay, like that was worthless. I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I feel like this is a very like not talked about topic sometimes, and people talk about it, but they don't really look deeper into it. So I think that's pretty cool. I know I always just was thinking to myself like, oh, you know, it's just they just want to keep you on there, and it's addicting, and like everyone knows the general information, but that was a very like in-depth look at it.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you're like if you're constantly involved with that, I know that people have such high screen times. We're spending so much time going through this, so it affects our brain chemistry. You're constantly like you're not satisfied, and it might affect, I don't know much research outside of it, but I think it does affect your life outside of social media. Like especially in terms of reward seeking activities, like exercising or anything like that gives you dopamine because you're overusing it.
Yeah, like I feel like when you just continuously use these sites, like it's going to push you in a certain way. And I always think about, I wonder what the effects are on other aspects. Like for example, like how has social media changed like social interaction between groups of people that you know? Like we go to the same school, UNIP. I'm graduating in June as well. So basically, like I wonder what UNIP was like 20 years ago when you had maybe this number of students, but everything was different, you know?
Yeah. I read about this study which said that when we're on social media, it gives us a collective memory. So there was a study done on millennials in an office. It was between two groups of people, ones which used social media and the other group did not use social media. So they tested their memory on certain events afterwards. And the ones that use the social media website, they had this sense of collective memory, and the ones that didn't use it, they had no clue what's going on. So I think when we're at this, we're pretty similar, like in terms of age, where we go to school, where you're living. So probably the algorithm is exposing us to certain things that gives us a sense of collective memory. Like we feel there's a sense of relatability and people have something to talk about. So
yeah, like I always think about like when I was in high school, we had to use Instagram and other platforms like to like get the word out. Like when I was class president, we would, you know, use these platforms and like have fundraisers, and I would give out flyers and stuff. So like, I don't know, like I watched this video, okay, and it was like in the late 1990s, and people were in high school and someone was walking around with a video camera, and everyone just seemed genuinely just happy to be there and doing their thing. But nowadays it feels like everyone's watching everybody, and it's not so healthy. And it's a new frontier in social interaction. Like we're in a new frontier now. It's almost like when they invented writing or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I've seen that video too. Again, like collective memory.
Oh, like people know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know which video exactly you're talking about because I've seen it too. And I think it does. Any new technology, it acts as an extension to what we already had. For example, when books were just invented or writing on paper, people were freaking out. They were like, no, this is evil, this is like that. and now like with smartphones, they're really like an extension to our memory, our nervous system. Like it's just impossible almost to act like function properly without them. So there's this aspect that you need to have this thing, and it's, you know, it's required everywhere you go, so you cannot escape it. But like that's what I think about it. But I'm more on the side that it's not about the tool itself, it's about the intent with which you use it. Like when we are talking about addiction, for example, social media addiction, or any kind of addiction, it's not about the addiction itself, it's not about the cigarette, it's not about the Instagram, it's about the intent with which you're going towards it.
I'm sorry, I'm just following up with the next person here. Essentially, like, with what you're saying about the collective memory thing, I'm just picturing how politics is going to work, how, you know, like, even debate, even history itself, like, how is that going to work, you know? People are going to decide collectively on, like, what's going to happen. Like, all I can think about was how Gutenberg makes the printing press, and then the books go around and everyone's reading them, and it's like now everyone has a collective memory of this book. Or I don't know, like the only thing I can think of for some reason is Common Sense by Thomas Paine. It was a pamphlet spread around America as the revolution was kicking off to back the founding fathers and like the Congress in Philadelphia and things like that. So like that to me is like collective memory. On a very slower scale. Like you had people who they had these books and they would read them and then they would converse with their neighbor like, hey, this makes sense, you know. The American Revolution was about a British tax dispute along with a few other things, but like that was definitely a huge part of it. So I just think it's kind of interesting how you have like these mediums of media and they correlate this way.
I feel like as though it's just the same thing, but at a faster, more chaotic, even way.
But can humans keep up with that? You know, like, can we keep up with it? I feel like that's yet to be seen. I mean, I think part of all the instability I see in my country, in the U.S., with the whole democratic system and like all of the things going on there, it's like social media has pushed the envelope very far. People are really divided as well in the U.S. and I feel like the media, social media especially, plays into that. It's profitable for someone to message somebody else and be like, oh, your politics is wrong and I hate you because of this, you know. And it can be very, when big conglomerates use that information, it can be very like taxing to the regular everyday individual, you know.
That is true. I feel like it has made communication so much more instant. We're able to keep tabs on people almost like at any given time. Anybody can approach you anytime. And I feel that part of it really affects well-being of individuals. And it's like we're social animals, but can we keep up at this level? I feel like that is something people they vary individually.
I mean, we're still monkeys, you know, and everyone's gonna laugh at me because I like monkeys, but I think it's interesting because they're such interesting creatures. You know, you see them at the zoo, they're just chilling, but like really deep down, there's like, you know, that's where if you buy into evolution, that is, we're related to. You go to the zoo, you see gorillas and chimpanzees. We have a common ancestor somewhere. But also you have the other like human like species before and during Homo sapiens, and there was like, you know, the Neanderthals and like Homo erectus and like Homo habilis and things like that. Like you had these different like species, but really deep down, like we are still that. Yeah. And these extensions of ourselves can only go as far as our brain allows them to. But I'm also curious what you think about like social media and like the AI aspect of it, like
the AI aspect of it. So like more in terms of the algorithm. how it's functioning.
Yeah.
I feel it has a lot of ethical issues linked to it because based on what I've read, nobody really knows how the machine learning thing works and how it's giving you the content that it's presenting to you. Like we can only make guesses. Like we've created this thing and we don't know how exactly it's giving us the output that it does. So this is interesting, and I feel it when we don't know how this algorithm works and how it's giving you the content that it is, it's really significant in terms of topics like racism and discrimination. Like it might just favor certain people, like certain videos go viral and certain videos don't, like they just show up on your feed and nobody knows how that works. So I feel there is a movement, or like people in this field, they're trying to make algorithms more and more unbiased. But that for sure, it's like a black box.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, how are you supposed to know how it works?
Yeah.
It's very like deep in there in the coding and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this has just been a huge technological advancement. And I know that there's a lot of mental health problems associated with social media.
I think, yeah. Well, firstly, we talked about how we're constantly seeking information. So, in terms of an evolutionary perspective, we are meant to seek information. So, we stay alive. But the level at which we're being exposed to stimuli in terms of social media right now, we're constantly in this mechanism, like always information seeking. It's to a level that it's unhealthy for our mental well-being. Additionally, like what I'm really curious about is how it affects our cognition, like how it trains our attention to work in certain ways. For example, like speaking more about scrolling based social media, where you see, like if you even see like a 3-year-old, they're gonna go like the way we scroll, it's really fast. So we're becoming more accustomed to switching between contents. Like you're gonna go from a cat video to maybe a thirst trap, and then something about geography maybe. So the information, it switches so fast. So we've trained our minds to respond to that really quickly. But what we're losing, what the cost of it is that we're less interested in longer conversations, more focused work, and that's what we're losing. Like it's becoming harder. Like people are losing their attention spans and things like that.
Yeah, so like people are getting better at multitasking. But I was doing some reading about how you can't really multitask. Like it's like you switch between these things. But I think you're right when you're losing that long-term, like kind of devoted, focused work. I feel like that's getting lost.
Yeah, we're losing the deep, focused work. And I feel like that's where the most brilliant ideas come from. This is more like we're getting better and better at switching. But isn't switching more like survival? Like you can like quickly switch between this information and that information, and it's more spontaneous, but you're not getting into deep thought.
Yeah, like this is why I like watching Joe Rogan a lot, because it's just two people having a conversation and you can tune in whenever you want. I bet you a lot of people don't watch the whole episode, like they'll just kind of skip around. I bet you some people do, like you're playing a video game, you might want to watch the whole episode, so shout out Joe Rogan if you ever watch this episode. I'd love to come on the show someday. But I was watching one with, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson. And this is an example of like a long-term thought. Like Albert Einstein discovered the theory of relativity and how objects with a lot of gravity, like they physically warp the space around them, so that like the matter in these areas gets warped in terms of imagery. So for example, like there was a solar eclipse and he went to the South Pacific to note the sun, and there was a star that was like behind the sun. And with the solar eclipse, you could see this star. It was like behind the sun. They're like next to it. But the reason why the star was next to it was because the sun's gravity warped the light from around the backside of the star to our vision. So it proved that like gravity can pull light around. Like if this was the sun, the star might be like back here, but in our point of view, it's right here. But like it's really behind the sun, but the gravity of the sun pulls it.
It's
around.
like a blanket, like.
Yeah, like kind of like, I would say it's more of a sphere, like just like that of gravity in it. The star just so happened to be behind it, but it just appeared like right there. It was really interesting. But do you know how long that probably took him to do that? But also like think about like, okay, maybe he's got more alone time in that sense, but also like, okay, he's not on his phone the whole time, like just searching things and like watching cat videos, and like he was really interested in this subject, and you have to tune a lot of it out, you know, and I feel like those minds, those really good minds, are being taken by just this stuff, you know. Not all of them.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think social media can help improve this. I mean, imagine if Albert Einstein could have reached out on Instagram to 7 or 8 other people that are working in the field, and they get together and develop something more. I'm sure that he had conferences like that, but it's just interesting how it's changing everything, you know, in this way.
Yeah, I feel in today's world, like an individual, no matter where you are, you have the internet, you have a phone, you hold a lot of power. Like a 3-year-old has access to so much information, like a scientist, like back then, like he must have worked so much to retrieve that kind of information that is so readily available to us. So we're kind of privileged in that sense. Like having all this information, definitely it's
almost like
us.
a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Like the fact that like for example, okay, in high school I didn't really go out that much. I would work, but I would also just go home and I would watch YouTube on my computer, and it would be about like history and astronomy and geography and like just subjects I thought were interesting. And like that was cool. Like I didn't need to go to the library to look at that. And honest to God, I don't know if I would have thought to go to the library like if it didn't exist. Like I don't know. Like I just, maybe one day I was like, oh, okay, this video about, you know, how did World War I kick off? Well, how did that happen? You know, and I watch that and I just think it's so interesting. And I hope that more people do what I did in that sense, where it's like they pick a subject that they're interested in. Hey, maybe you like chemistry a lot. Like for some reason you're just like, I look at that periodic table and like that's what I like. So you do that and you have these videos and you can watch and learn kind of on your own. Like it could be a really helpful supplement to teachers. Like I feel like education should take advantage of the benefits in social media, but also there are drawbacks that we talked about earlier. Like people are a little more, like society has just gone in a new direction. What I like when you describe it is how you're able to kind of quantify it a bit further. Like someone like me or most people, they just know that society has changed, but in what ways? You're kind of laying that out, which I think is cool.
Yeah, so I would like say like it goes back to intent, how you used it, like it benefited you. And I mean like people sometimes it affects us on different layers, like cognitive, emotional, behavioral, like the ABCs of psychology. But sometimes you're in an emotionally dark place and it's so readily available to us that people can go towards social media as a place of self-soothing, where I don't know, like somebody goes through a breakup and then going through the cat videos that are on the internet or going through something funny, it helps you escape from that. And it's escapism, and it can be done with any other thing, but the fact that this kind of technology is so readily available to us, it's what we're going towards.
Yeah, and like it's interesting how you can use it in a good way and in a bad way. Like there's two different
Yeah.
ways you can use it. Like or honestly, it's very gray. Like you can,
It's a tool.
yeah, it's a tool. When I was younger, I would learn some pieces on the piano, not from the music sheets. Like I can't read music. Sorry, I had a music fundamentals class actually in college. That was hard. Like I had a really hard time with that class. I could probably maybe remember a few things, but then you add like is it in E minor or is it like in G minor, if that's even a thing? Like I don't. That's what makes it hard for me. But reading music is actually pretty hard. Like I don't. That's like an art. So it's another language, literally. But I remember I'd learned the piano just by seeing the keys visually on the video that are being pressed, and then also like how long to press them. And they use bars to denote like when to press them. So you'd have like the key, like here, like someone's fingers, and then you'd have like the little like blocks that come down, and it tells you when to, So I learned a few things that way. I also learned a few things the old way when you learn music, but I don't remember how to read it. It was just kind of like memorize. I had piano classes for a little while.
Yeah, I think it makes things really easy. The way you can manipulate information, it's very, because it's visual, auditory, like it grabs almost all the senses. And the way we're going further with this, there's also like touch gloves that people are making that would further assist us with online shopping. Like you can touch the material and things like that.
Like VR kind of?
Yes.
Oh, so you're saying like, let's say you see a piece of fabric on Amazon, you have a glove that you put on and you can go like this and feel.
Yes. You can feel how, like, this is where we're going towards.
That's strange. It makes me a little nervous. It's kind of like the chips in the head.
But I would say that is like an embedded technology. You have more reason to be anxious about it. Like, I personally wouldn't go through a surgical procedure to have even, I don't care about the benefits of it that much, but a glove or something that is non-invasive,
Yeah, you just put it on. Like,
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, we're kind of abutting towards the end of the time here. I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention, like anything you didn't go over.
nothing much. But I really liked when you said that it just made it easier for you to learn so many different things. I would like to mention that that grit and forcing yourself to do things, that kind of energy, it's I'm not able to find the word, but it's exhaustible. So we're more likely to do things that are easier for us. And social media, the internet, it makes intelligent tasks easier. Like it's a double-edged sword, but it makes intelligent tasks easier. So I feel like there's more people having more like intellectual conversation. Like when in the past, when people didn't have access to all this information, it was way harder to do that. People were not talking as intelligently, I would say, in my opinion.
And I see what you're saying. It's harder to connect back then as well. And honestly, governments had a lot more power over the media back then. Even to this day, like you have some of the cable news networks in the U.S., it's no secret that these organizations kind of have pockets in the government and back and forth. I don't think it's as corrupt as other countries, though. Like I think some countries it's very controlled, like in Russia with the Russia Times RT. At this point, it's just a propaganda mouthpiece because of the war that they're having. But the fact that we're able to upload this anywhere and like people can just watch it, like you type in the name and it's there. That's a really new thing. And I think that's like worth thinking about, and how this is going to retroactively change all facets of kind of societal engagement. Like for example, like I'm talking about how it's going to change politics. Like people are going to be able to go back and let's say that you have a podcast, they can watch what you say. Or you're going in for a job, are they going to go back and look at look at all of these things, and what if they hear a little phrase that they don't like, and then that they just completely rule you out because of that. So I feel like things are going to have to change, like the rigid norms we have in society are going to have to change because of the kind of prevalence of this social media and how far it's going to go. What is it going to be like 10, 20 years from now?
I feel definitely it's a milestone in terms of free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that only the people who there's a certain demographic of people who are in authority, and I think that when people have this kind of power, it's dismantling that demographic, because everybody has a power. Like anybody could upload anything at any given moment of time.
Mm-hmm.
If they have access to these resources, which is expanding like really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is something to look out for. And about people canceling each other, I think that's a toxic byproduct of this kind of communication.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going, like my morals, like here's, so my morals can tell you like what to do, kind of, like it's just not.
And I feel like people are very surface level with that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just hear a word and you're ready to cancel the person.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did this, okay, I associate this label with all these other things and I would just cancel you. So people don't want to engage in a deeper level of conversation. Like try to understand why you would say that.
That bothers me a lot. Especially, in my state where I'm from, we have a huge education culture. Or at least that's what I was told growing up. Like it was, in schools, at home as well. Like my mother was a teacher, or she still is technically. But it was always like we're a leader in education, But how can you have an educated discussion if you're unwilling to kind of look deeper and focus your thoughts more and really try and understand where A, this person's coming from, and B, what are the facts surrounding the issue, and C, are you able to verbalize how you're thinking in a very like controlled and nice manner, which is why I like how this free speech victory is being applied here. Like it's just, you can just say whatever you please, and I feel like we have to take more lessons from that. People should just be a little more mature, I think, in some ways when it comes to speech. Like you need to just understand this is what this person believes. I can say like, oh, this view is totally diabolical. Like I'm just not a fan of what this person's saying. Like just as an idea, like if there was someone there. But like when you there are some people where I would just refuse to talk to you. Like if you actually believe what you're saying, like if someone's like actually racist, mm-hmm. or like actually like hates these people for no reason, or actually harbors this idea. It's like, okay, I don't have to speak to you. We live in a civilized society. You can live your life. I can live mine. But like, it's just, there needs to be a higher level of, if you're going to engage in a discussion, you need to be ready to have your thoughts kind of interpreted. It goes both ways. Yeah.
I think it seems really heroic to just cancel people out. Like they say certain things.
Yeah, they think they're a hero. Yeah.
You call this person out in public because you have the power and the privilege. It's not that hard to call somebody out and cause that kind of trauma to the other person. But I think what is more difficult is to sit down and talk to this person and see where they're coming from, have an intelligent discussion with them. And it goes both ways. Like both parties need to be in agreement to have that kind of discussion and come from an understanding place rather than an attacking or argumentative energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're running out of time here, but it was really good having you on the show, the first lady on the show. So I appreciate you coming on. I think your thoughts were really well placed, and I feel like people are going to be privileged to hear what you had to say.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for having me. It was really nice.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Our next guest is coming on shortly. Stay tuned and cheers.